Howdy chaps, welcome back to part 5, I reckon, for the XC wagon. Now we've been making progress off screen. Don't always film everything I get up to, mainly because sometimes I prefer to just get it done, and sometimes tasks like sandblasting the back of this thing are best done without your camera nearby, because you can pretty well absolutely stuff a camera with sandblasting. So that's sort of why that wasn't filmed. But if you were following my Graham's Restorations Facebook page, you would have seen progress photos of what was going on. So what we've done to this since you've last seen it is there's a filler panel, which once it was removed, I would have had to classify it as basically a bit of leftover steel, and the factory went, oh yeah, that'll fill that gap nicely. Just fills the gap in the back between the two panels. So odd, just a panel that they've welded straight over the top of everything. They sort of pretty it up. That's all I could assume this panel serves. And we'll show you that in a jiffy. At home I've been working on the VF Commodore. That is nearly ready to come down here for the paintwork. Very close, that'll be next week I reckon. Got my bumper bars for it. I got genuine parts. But the only thing I didn't buy brand new genuine for that Holden was the bumper bars, because the Taiwanese bumper bars were half the price of genuine. But after opening the box and looking at them, be very surprised it didn't come from the same manufacturer, because a lot of genuine stuff doesn't come from Australia anymore. So considering how well those bumper bars fit, sort of think they might be the same item as a genuine, just with a different box, but they fit real well and half the price. But aside from that, all the other stuff for the Commodore has been filthy cheap, like wow cheap. So odd. But anyway, enough chit chat about that. I'll show you what I've gotten up to with this falcon. So this is the panel I was talking about. That's basically just a filler panel. It's all I can think of it. It doesn't look like it serves any purpose other than to make it look prettier. But it's feels like it's made out of some pretty heavy duty steel. So we'll have to do some rust repairs to it. Obviously through here, through here. The top is okay. Most of the bottom is okay. A couple areas we will need to do a bit of patchwork on. A little bit up here, a little bit here. It was ridiculous to remove. So they had a beater weld there, a blobber weld there, bead, blob, and spot welds to here, but obviously nothing between here and here, because the boot floor was there, and obviously the spot weld machine couldn't do anything with that gap, so nothing. And then obviously that's where the petrol tank lives, and then a ton of them through. This took quite a bit of doing to remove, and I don't understand how it is possible that it did that, but this took forever to take off. It just wouldn't come off willingly, and it got a little bit bent up that end, but we can straighten that. I know a guy. But yeah, whoa, and it's hefty. It is really a heavy piece of steel. I was like, impressive, most impressive. But when it was removed, this is what we were left with, and all of this was just surface rust. It's like, oh my. But taking it off, it looks almost the same. It's like, what purpose did that serve? Virtually nothing. So through this area, sort of from here to here, there's no rust in the middle. It's bent because at some point it's obviously been backed into something, so I can straighten that out. And this lip, it's been sandblasted. That's what, well, it was the day before yesterday. A couple of pinholes, not too bad. All the pinning has been blasted. In these corners, which is what we're going to tackle, we're going to try and get these open. There's at least 3 layers in that corner, and there's 2 here, and there's 3 in there. So we're going to have to probably whittle off this corner of the well, this filler panel here that sort of joins up and under the lead, to get that piece off. which is actually technically the quarter panel sits over the top of it, so it's actually I don't know, maybe it'll come off. There's obviously a filler panel in there, obviously they have the factory built it, there's a few different layers, but I'm just going to take off, I'm not going to take the whole thing off, I'm just going to drill out the spot welds through here and up and around here and separate and try and pull this outer skin off, because we do have rust behind here. And then what we're going to try and do is get this panel out here carefully, whether or not it's going to be a bit of a exploratory cut, and then once we get that out and that off, we're going to get this panel out, because this one goes behind this one, and then we should in theory be down to this panel, which also has a hole in it. So we're going to have some fun times, and not all of these welds are easy to get to, because somehow there's actually spot welds in here. So there's obviously another panel behind here that's a lot thicker, but I'm thinking that this catch here is actually potentially welded to the back of this panel, but we're just going to have to open it up and have a little looky. I'm not sure how well that's attached, but it's going to be fun, and it's pretty much going to be the same ordeal over here, and this is going to take quite a bit of doing. This one will be easier because it's a different shape. As you can see, this section here is actually different to this section here, because on these wagons, one of the options you could get on a Fairmont was a two-way tailgate. So all tailgates were the base model open like that, but some of them, the Fairmonts, had this thing called a two-way tailgate, so you could open it going down, or you could shut it and then you could open it sideways and swing it wide open. So I think the reason these are different is to allow the tailgate to swing open rather than just down and up, because if it was just down and up, both sides would look like that. But this allows the tailgate to slip behind it as it opens. So that's where we're at with that. But sandblasting it was really the best way to get it open, because we've got another hole below that tail light. So I might tackle this section first, because it seems like it's going to be significantly easier, because there's going to be less welds in weird places. And I'm going to have to probably cut, once I've got this outer skin off, I'm going to have to probably cut above this, or maybe even up here. I've got to pick a nice area where it's well above where the rust is, just so I can look behind it. I don't know if this one's as rusted all the way through as that one, but these are going to take some creative thinking, because I know for a fact you can't buy any parts for wagons, hardly at all. I believe the only rust-proof panels you can buy for wagons are the outer lower sections, and obviously they share the same doors and guards and stuff, and I don't even think you can buy a dogleg section. So you're relatively stuffed when it comes to getting repair sections. So a lot of this is going to have to hand fabricated, and this side has actually also got a dent from the bumper bar being crushed into it, so that's got to be straight when that goes back in. So that's going to be today's task, at least trying to open these up. So me and a drill bit and a belt sander are going to get very well acquainted. But you could just see how heavy the rust was, and just chewed through it. I mean, the bottom is gone as well, but that's under this piece of steel is a very thick piece of steel here. So these wagons are like built like tanks, really. I'd imagine one of these in a demolition derby back in the day would have survived really well. But that's where we're at. Stay tuned for more. Lead wiping, it still needs, there's some shaping to be done, but the worst of it's done. Not bad for a first attempt. So progressing along quite nicely. We'll catch up in a jiffy. Here we go with multiple layers. So I had to start with removing the outer quarter panel. I only took a little bit off. Interesting to note, one of those welds, the middle one, didn't do anything. Then I've had to pick this one off. Like I suggested, actually came off real nice. Interesting to note there was no welds through that bottom section, but we could put a piece on that and put that back in. So what we need to do is file these away neatly so we don't lose them. And now we need to clean this up a bit and potentially try and take out this next piece. The trick will be working out what's the go here, but I reckon that's stuff welded to the back side. The problem is I'll have to get my little endoscope in there and have a little look to see how it's all attached, because it feels like there's multiple layers joining in here. Potentially there's this welded to this, but there's another panel in there which could be welded to this. There's definitely multiple layers all in this one area. So unfortunately it's a little bit time consuming in the whole unpicking it process. So I'm thinking I might run a blade up through here and then across to keep it on a flat, so that when I take that piece out it's got a really good spot to rejoin rather than messing up anything in here. Yeah, it's just going to be one of those days where it's just unpick, 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 unpick. You should note this whole tail light mount is actually its own little panel. So you got like this panel, and this panel, and then you got this panel. There's so many panels all joining in this one area. It's quite incredible. Back of this car should be strong as an ox. Anyway, we'll keep drilling them out and keep tracking on. Well chaps, as you can tell that it's very loud today because it's raining, and this is the first chance I've got to be able to film where the rain has quietened down enough to actually get to it. So if you can see here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers to get to the 6th one at the bottom. So that's the very, very bottom, finally. So all I have to do there, theoretically, is just a square patch, really, because it's just a straight edge, and I can do that. Just do a quick patch in there, and then make a little piece for here, which goes on top of it. Probably have to take that piece off too, and fix the bottom one, and then put the top on. So there's quite a bit of reconstruction going on the very bottom layer, and then you got to work your way up. This one, yeah, that one's a bit special, isn't it? Shouldn't be too difficult, in theory. Should be able to keep most of it and just put a square in the middle of that. That just needs to be blasted and put back in. That's the catch. There's your catch. So that'll get blasted and put back in, and that sort of lives like that in there, and it lives behind this guy. I don't think this one had any rust in it. It might have had a smidgen, but oh yeah, right at the bottom. And then that, and then that. This is the last one that goes in. So, working our way up from the bottom. But that's where we got to. If you want to know how many layers are on a wagon, quite a few. So I'll clean this area up and then start tackling it, I guess. Catch up in a jiff. Right chaps, we've got the next piece ready. That piece had a couple of holes in it, so I just welded them up, so that didn't need to be replaced. I've got my next piece drying, copper sprayed. It is cold today, so the copper spray is taking longer than I would like to dry. And I'll get that welded in briefly, and then I think unfortunately we've got to call that quits on the video because we're running out of time. This has taken an exceptionally long amount of time to pick all apart. Even though in the video it'll seem like it took 30 seconds, it really took a long time because a lot of it didn't come apart willingly. We did run this bit through the blaster, that's come up alright where the catch is going. So that'll go back in beautiful. I mean, it'll all go back in beautiful, but that bit's nice. So I'll get that back in a second, and then we'll have to wrap it up. That bit's not too bad. So in the next video you'll see this whole section be rebuilt, and then we'll have to do exactly the same on that side. Though I suspect that side might be more difficult due to the fact that it's recessed in there, whereas this one's sort of very flat, so just have to play it by ear. So yeah. Right chaps, we have welded in the new piece. It fits lovely, and it's looking lovely. So we're working away from the bottom up. All I do is grind that down, and then we'll wrap up the video there, I reckon. So we'll catch you up in a jiff. Righty chaps, that's that corner done. Or at least, well, it's not actually. That's one section of that piece done. So here's the before. Yeah, there's the after. Couldn't be simpler. It's basically cut that piece out, trim up a new piece, put a fold in it, put a little tweak on the end of it like this, so it kicks up a little bit, and that's it. Some plug weld holes, weld it in, copper spray between them, obviously, grind down, done. In the next video you'll see that piece, which is another very simple piece. It's just a square. Couldn't be simpler if you tried. And then we can move on to fixing that piece and then work our way back up. Basically with this kind of repair, gotta go all the way down to the bottom and fix everything and come all the way back up. So yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. It may not be the best, but more to come, so stay tuned, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.